Yes, we are frequently talking about motivation in nowadays business language. Um, but this is a very complicated and complex word. Uh, it means different things for different people. And in terms of brain science, when we look at brain, what's happening in the brain when people are motivated, we see that there is a dopamine surge in the brain. So we see that people are motivated when dopamine is released in their brains. What happens? How it happens? We apply pressure on people is that their brains are releasing cortisol, not dopamine, and this is creating stress. And as soon as brains are stressed, they push themselves into defense, and they become less open to learn new things, to change, to remember, and to perform very well. So we need to think about what's happening in the brain and what brain needs to perform optimally. Brain seeks safety and reward so that it can release dopamine to motivate us to go after a goal, after a purpose. Simply saying, in colloquial language, we should say that we should find the goal meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, if they're misaligned and there's conflict between one department and another, a different function or another, even from top floor to shop floor or just through sales ops and finance, there's all these opportunities for different goals to be misaligned. And as soon as you get that confusion, there's no capacity to predict, so you can't feel safe, and therefore you're not going to be motivated just at a chemical level, right? So it's so obvious when you look at it through the brain lens. It all makes so much sense, and we just don't have this language and this knowledge in leadership teams to realize what conditions and environments they've got to try and create for people. And these are the common things that we see in businesses: misaligned beliefs, unclear expectations, and leaders who are so stressed and defensive themselves, they haven't even got the opportunity to connect and emotionally engage with their teams. So, and that whole set of signaling that comes from them stops that engagement anyway. So you end up with a whole system that just says if you hit the KPIs, if you hit the targets, then this is what good looks like. And it's just missing this whole human component where you need connection between people so that people can not have that cortisol killing BDNF which kills neurogenesis, and they can have the right brainwave levels and all the things that you need neurologically to perform. And when we get it wrong, which we do more often than not, we see things, people just don't care about their work. So you end up with quality problems. They will, procrastinate, avoid responsibility, not contribute in meetings. And when we've got that kind of underlying culture, because it's just the way brains are programmed to work. You can't blame people for being like this. Their brains are just doing what they're designed to do, which is survive their environment. You're going to end up getting problems that repeat over and over again, year in, year out, and you always end up with the same kind of performance. I mean, the bottom line there is perfect, right? It's neurological. It's not incompetence. It's just literally how we're designed to function. And again, using the words organizational sickness, it is like a disease that we've all got and nobody knows we've got it. Oh dear, that's hiding behind there. Let me just move that quickly. So, I mean, this is like a nice little process flow map, really, if I can grab that. Coming from Gallup, this whole idea of misalignment, it does end up being a top predictor of disengagement and stress. So that we've got the stats, we've got loads of information out there now in the world, especially over the last few years. Gartner, McKinsey, all these people, big businesses doing global surveys are reporting the same things. The average at the moment is 79% disengaged globally, but we know that spikes up to up 95, 96%, doesn't it, in France and Italy? Huge amounts of stress, more in the US than anywhere else at 50%. And it's great having all this information, but the question has got to be, so what? Well, the so what that here's the bottom line is that it does reduce productivity. We've got a flat-lined productivity improvement curves as far as information from the Office of National Statistics and NISA, which is a stats analysis finance company, are showing. And they've been flatlining since, well, the 2008-2012 crash. And everybody's stressed. Everybody's talking about burnout. No one's really enjoying life. and they don't know how to pay the bills because of inflation. There's so much going on with the geopolitical state of the world, and that's leading to people looking for alternatives. So we've got higher attrition rates, and with friends leaving and no stability. And no sense of progress. We end up with these negative cultures, and people talk about toxic cultures all the time. And that whole situation hits the bottom line and the top line. Salespeople find it harder to sell. It's harder to produce anything at a profit, and it's just not good. So if the root cause of this comes down to brain function, obviously the thing we've got to focus on is how the brains are working. Over to you, mate. Go on, I've spoken too much there.
Yes, when we look at these symptoms only and when we label people as lazy, we lock the problem because if being lazy is a character trait which we cannot change as leaders, managers, then we cannot solve problem either. We should stop probably and think about our definition of the problem. If we see people as lazy, we can stop and think about it. Probably they are not lazy, but they are disengaged at work. And when we look at the disengagement, there are also, of course, always root causes like false beliefs. For example, leaders may have a false belief that people should be rational at work, emotions should be left outside of the work. These are false beliefs which create an environment in which brains cannot perform effectively. Again, the language used by leaders is complex and confusing. A leader may think that he's a good communicator, but the messages he's conveying may trigger completely different meanings in different minds, which causes disengagement and pulling in different directions because everybody gets different things. And managers fail to engage their teams because they don't know how to engage with their teams emotionally. And this is something we are teaching in BTFA online course. And all these root causes are causing low emotional engagement when people are not emotionally engaged, which is the case for 80% of the people in the world. They look like lazy, but they are not.
Yeah. Brilliant. And again, when we talk low emotional engagement, what we mean is that you have to have the right chemical state in your brain to be engaged, right? There has to be dopamine present. You have to have the right balance between oxytocin and serotonin. And that's when people are engaged, when their brain's in the right place. If you don't get that, you don't get engagement. It's as simple as that. It's incredible. So I think, talking about alignment versus misalignment and how that really is key to reducing disengagement, and therefore what do you have to do, how do you have to be, how do you have to communicate, how do you deploy strategy, how do you manage change, how do you run projects, all the key things we focus on in business require this knowledge to be able to approach them in ways that produce the best outcomes in brains. And that's what we're really talking about ultimately at the beginning of, at the end of the day. Um, if we can't get that, if we can't get brains aligned, if we can't give them the environment in which they're not just trying to survive, but they can thrive, then you're just not going to get the performance we're looking for. Um, I mean, real examples. We do this a lot, right? We've been doing this for a few years now, and we see the same kind of patterns. We quite often go into an environment where we're told that people are disengaged, unmotivated, misaligned, all these kind of things. And actually, when you start to facilitate some sessions and people have been through the BTFA training and can have a conversation about brain function, it's so obvious that it's the misalignment in fundamental beliefs. And all we do is we can challenge, therefore, what's the wiring pattern in your brain versus your brain, or this position in the business versus that position in the business? What's your belief as it's been formed by your experience of the world? And as soon as you start getting into that and people know how to talk about it and how to regulate their own emotional responses if there's any challenge in that, so that we continue sending more positive signals, we just get better results. I mean, we've seen companies, recent clients taking loss-making products that they've sort of put it into their sales portfolio as a loss leader, moving that within a year to being 20% profit making products, the products they've been making for years previously, and not being able to find a way to get that profit linked to that product and the manufacture of it. because they just hadn't had that kind of collaboration and problem solving that's come once we've been able to start under getting under the skin of the situation and talking about beliefs. So yeah, it's quite common. Levent, go on, your turn.
Yes, once you solve the problem of misalignment, once people get aligned, it can happen only at belief level. Their beliefs should be aligned. Their beliefs should be similar that so that they will act, they will behave similarly. This is the code of alignment. When you solve the problem of alignment, many other problems are also improved, like disengagement, confusion, repeated mistakes, slow decisions, low ownership, resistance to change. Because what's happening in the brain is brain stress in the brain and threat perception is reduced, and all these problems are caused by um, such processes in the brain.
Yeah, but it's like taking the barriers away to change in it, and we see it so often that we we see clients get far better results faster, shorter time frames, which means less cost once they start understanding the human bit and getting this right through BTFA, compared to anything they've been able to achieve in the past without it. So, um, again, why does BTFA work? Has got to be a question that must be on people's minds, I'm sure. And we kind of got to compare it to what's out there in the market, right? And we're not trying to throw anybody under the bus because the beauty of this is that we've got neuroscience now. We can look at what works for the human brain, and we built that into the approach. So that we've got the chance to improve everything. And what we find looking back on old approaches, which we've done ourselves, right? Hands up, we've been training lean tools and techniques for years and decades the same way that everybody's been training them and getting the same kind of mediocre results. Could few good projects here, a few failures there, usually something in the middle. But BTFA is working brilliantly and really effectively and efficiently. And it's because we've reverse engineered it back from our knowledge of neuroscience to see what a solution looks like. And that's what highlights the difference between not just what other training providers do or what training fails to do in general, but just what we've believed to be good in the past compared to what we can see to be now, how we can challenge it. And one of those things is too conceptual. It's not based on neuroadaptation, so that's not the outcome objective. It ignores emotions, which, this is this neurochemical shift, which, if it's not right, reduces the capacity for brains to adapt, which we also call learning. And it doesn't target that shift in wiring. So it doesn't literally, change beliefs in the vernacular. But that means you've got to change the wiring. Whereas what we're doing with BTFA, we kept it simple. It's very scientific. It's very practical. It's an emotional, engaging story that people get involved with. And that's why the outcomes are sustainable because it deals with not just that rational, like PDCA, this is how you're going to plan to do something. You do it, you check your results, and you act on that to plan again. That's very rational and it's got us to where we are. It's fantastic, but it misses this human component. And when we put that emotional human component in, the results just, move into a new stratosphere. So this is why it's working. It's good stuff. Levent, over to you.
Yes, other differences that we have from other companies, we mostly see that they are highly theoretical and that doesn't translate into practice. And as you said, they don't provide sustainable behavioral change. We are engineers, we are coming from continuous improvement and lean world. I'm from Toyota with 16 years of experience in Toyota. So I know what Toyota production system is. The trainings you can find in the market are about lean operational excellence. I mean, these kind of mechanical tools, or they are trainings for personal development, mainly run by psychologists. So, if you notice, there are no trainings that combine both lean operational excellence and how human brain works, or emotions, if you like. Um, as I am from Toyota, I know why Toyota production system is successful because it includes people. And this is what we are trying to do with our product, BTFA. We use neuroscience and a very simple language to create sustainable behavior.
Yeah, and it's working. That's the key thing is what's the acid test is like, well, does it work? And the answer is yes. And it's worked consistently since we've launched it. So it does make a big difference, not only in our own effectiveness in being able to deliver something that works. When we apply the same principles to every part of business, that all works better as well. So, it's all linked. So I'm conscious we're on time because we started a few minutes late and it's now 12:23 and we do try and do these in 20 minutes so it's short, sharp and people can get some quick value because we're all so busy. So I'm going to whiz through the last few slides to make sure we cover everything off we wanted to say. Hopefully you can bear with us. So what does it look like? It's online learning. You do it at your own pace. It's blended learning. There's some video lessons. It's a great engaging story. We then get together for office hours where we get the people on each cohort to share and really connect, and that allows us to bring out multiple real case scenarios where everybody starts to realize that because we've all got a very similar brain, we all actually have very similar experiences in life and we're all facing the same challenges. We might call it different things in different sectors and use different language, but at base, it all comes down to the way our brains are surviving the world. And until we start working with it, then against it, we're just not going to get very far. I've got to nick what I heard from Oliver earlier, a guy that we're working with that was talking to me on a call. And he said it's a bit like the ocean. You can't fight it. You've got to learn how to sail on the ocean. You can't part the waves and carve your own route through it. It's a bit like that with the nature behind brains. We've got to learn to work with brains, and a lot of what we do in work at the moment works against them. So, it's about working with nature. Um, what happens afterwards? Trust builds up. Oxytocin levels are higher because people can collaborate, because they communicate better, they execute faster. Ownership levels go up. Reduced stress is one of the positive benefits and the outcomes of it all, because people are in a better, more connected, situation in teams. And we're herd animals. We need to be able to connect and benefit from each other. The old sayings reflect it. There's safety in numbers. All these things have meaning and they are there for a reason. And this is the stuff, that really makes the difference between how human beings collaborate and work together without technology driving them apart. This is about bringing people back together. Um, so that's the benefits that we're seeing from it. Let me just final takeaway. Okay, underperformance is not late. Levent, wrap up for us, mate.
Yeah. Quickly, underperformance is not laziness, its root cause is misalignment. And we now BTFA to fix it. And BTFA is an 5 or 6 weeks online course, which will require about 20 hours of your commitment. And to learn more details, please don't hesitate to contact us. And thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us today.
Brilliant. And thanks for your extra 3 minutes. And thanks for putting up with all the technical hitches along the way. It's been great. See you again soon. Cheers, everyone. Bye.